It was just really hard to follow. And again, like the number one word that comes to mind is gimmicky. They had a sad trombone noise that they played when you broke the rules, like mention another candidate. Also, the audience wasn't allowed to clap or boo, which is kind of counterintuitive. I mean, the audience came here to see the candidates. They should be able to show support for the people that they literally left their house for. Like, otherwise they could have just watched it at home. Like, what's the point?
Adam Soos here for Rebel News, and we are on location in Edmonton, Alberta for the official debate of the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. These folks, all 6 candidates, will be making their case why they are the best person to take on Justin Trudeau in the upcoming federal election, why they are the best people to lead this party moving forward. We're going to also be speaking to folks in attendance here to garner their impression and speaking to any protests that may arise outside to see what their issues are and why they are standing in opposition to some of the candidates who are in this leadership race. If you want to catch this coverage and more, you can do so always by going to leadershipreports.ca.
I think this campaign has lit things up. The feeling that so many Canadians have that Prime Minister Trudeau and the Liberals are really moving more and more to kind of a dictatorial stance on so many policies. They're not even going out to the people, asking what people feel. They're just saying this is the way it's going to be. And more Canadians are getting upset with that. These candidates are picking up on it, and they're lighting it up.
Now, some of the candidates have taken very strong positions on some of the freedom movements, whether it be protesting, whether it be the truck convoys. It's a pretty rapid departure from the position of the party, even under Erin O'Toole. What do you make of that transition?
I think it's good progress that candidates feel the liberty to say, for instance, on the trucker convoy, you've got Leslie Lewis and a couple others saying we support what the convoy wanted to see accomplished. And it wasn't that long ago they weren't allowed to say that. So anytime there's an openness of debate, freedom of expression, that's a good thing for Canadians.
People are very, very excited about a lot of the messages. Of course, Poilievre has talked a lot about economic freedom. He's talked about a lot of good conservative values in a high-level way. I hope he finds a way to talk about a fair deal for Alberta, ending equalization, equality in the Supreme Court and the House of Commons and those things. Leslie Lewis, I mean, she was very highly supported last time in Alberta, and so many people like the freshness that she brings and the conservative background she has. Roman Babbage is interesting to me because he shares a similar background to me, kicked out of caucus for standing up for what his constituents were asking for. And I mean, that's worth a lot, so I want to hear that. And of course, other candidates have some experience too. And I mean, the Conservative Party of Canada, it's unfortunate that they haven't been more electorally successful. Personally, I think it's because they haven't stuck enough to conservative values. But I will give them credit for handling the leadership problem with Erin O'Toole in the way they did. Erin didn't meet expectations, had some serious flip-flops, and they gave us the chance to right the ship.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think the mandates around the air travel is probably the biggest thing. I think at this point it's pretty well conclusive that that's not stopping anything, except the traveling of Canadians. And it's not really fair whether you're, one or the other to have a restriction on going to see family members and traveling for work and whatnot. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would say. I mean, there's so many issues to tackle, inflation as well too. Being able to, as a young Canadian, afford a house and afford the cost of living. I think that's one of the bigger issues as well too.
Well, what I'm hoping to see is that the questions are going to be about things that matter to Conservative Canadians. And that's not to say that after they win the leadership, they're not going to have to go on and start governing to issues that are broader than what the Conservative base cares about. But the one thing we know for sure is that if you can't get your own party excited about you, you're not going to get the country excited about you. And this has been something that's come up in the last 2 leadership races. And I want to see Conservative interests represented. And that's not even putting one particular dimension of what the party stands for. It's just that the question should be about things that matter to the people that are going to be voting in that race. That's what I'm hoping for.
Mr. Baber, what was the last thing that you binge watched on TV?
Mr. Chair, Adam Soos from Rebel News. I know this is a question you've been asked a number of times, and I completely respect and appreciate your sentiment that no one should have to apologize for work that they have done in the past. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to address the fact that Huawei was developing AI technology to enforce the CCP social credit system and to identify Uyghurs for internment. In light of this, do you have any apprehension or criticism of the party aside from, or of the company aside from the work that you yourself were doing?
All the work that I've done in my lifetime has always been aligned with the interest of Canada. Private, public sector, period. It's that simple. And for Huawei, I would ban Huawei. I'm very clear on that. And just to remind you how things evolve, it was a Conservative government that brought Huawei into Canada, a Conservative government of which Mr. Poilievre was a member of. I mean, Huawei was actually a sponsor on Hockey Night in Canada. So my position is very clear. Thank you.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News. The Allen inquiry found that foreign funding for Canadian-based environmental initiatives totaled $1.28 billion from 2003 to 2019, most of it largely untraceable, and a substantial amount of it was dedicated to blocking Alberta oil and gas development. Do you see this as a problem, and if so, what will you do to change it?
Absolutely. I think it's important that we have the courage and conviction to develop our natural resources, even in the face of foreign interference. And where we can detect that foreign interference does exist and that it's preventing us from realizing our potential, building pipelines, developing our natural resources, getting our product to market, offsetting foreign dictator oil, we should definitely ensure that those individuals and those organizations are stamped out and comply with our laws, which means not blocking critical infrastructures.
Hi, Mr. Aitchison. Celine Gallus for Rebel News. The Liberals have imposed a backdoor gun registry through an order in Council which changes regulations to require retailers and sellers to collect data on purchasers. New rules come into force May 18th. Will you commit to repealing these?
I will. Canada has among the most regulated firearms industry in the world. The problem that we have in this country is the issue of illegal guns coming across our border and getting into the hands of gangs. That's a much more difficult challenge to deal with. And you see the Liberals time and again using firearms and legal, law-abiding firearms owners in this country as a whipping tool to try to lather up their base and generate votes while not dealing with the real issues. It's the wrong approach for Canada. What we need to do is address the real problem, not demonize law-abiding firearms owners.
I thought the debate was a total gimmick. I was so disappointed in it. I thought it was going to be really serious, hard-hitting policy questions. I actually thought the debate that we saw last Thursday at the Canada Strong and Free Networking Conference was super fun and lighthearted, and they did get to some policy questions, but I thought this was just going to be like really hard-hitting. Like, I actually thought it was going to be a bit tedious and boring. Instead, I found it so confusing. It was so hard to follow. First, there was this a little like rapid questions, and then they moved into like the lightning round, which was just a series of personal questions about what show have you watched most recently, what's your favorite historical figure, what's your favorite politician, all these really personal questions. Like, yeah, sure, throw one or two of those in, but there was like you said, 30 or 40 minutes of that. And then they moved into this really confusing actual face-on-face discussion, and again, that was also gimmicky. They had like a paddle that they were supposed to hold up when they wanted to like interject, and it was just really hard to follow. And again, like the number one word that comes to mind is gimmicky. They had a sad trombone noise that they played when you broke the rules, like mentioned another candidate. Also, the audience wasn't allowed to clap or boo, which is kind of counterintuitive. I mean, the audience came here to see the candidates. They should be able to show support for the people that they literally left their house for. Like, otherwise they could have just watched it at home. Like, what's the point?
It certainly was good to be here to cover this debate. We're happy to be here asking tough questions, telling the other side of the story. But many here are categorizing this as something of a disappointment, certainly a failure. The energy in here was very low. The debate format was bizarre. The questions were lackluster. And a great deal of time was spent on sort of silly questions about personal hobbies, Netflix series. A very much a missed opportunity to get to the bottom of the leadership debate. This is what debates are for. It's about people pitting their ideas against each other and making their case that they're the best person to lead this country moving forward. Everyone effectively getting the sentiment that that is not what happened, or at least it wasn't what happened as successfully as could have been. The candidates are here, they're ready to go, but the debate moderation was an absolute disaster, and that sentiment is pretty categorical across the board. It's not just our opinion. We were very much hoping to speak with people after the debates, after the media scrum, but we went outside, and because of the moderation of the debate, because of the format of the evening, the energy was simply so low in here, everyone cleared out immediately. So we didn't even have a chance to speak to people about their sentiments on the evening because it was simply that drab. We're going to continue to follow the leadership race as it unfolds, covering the other debates. We've got people across this country, boots on the ground, covering the leadership debates and the stories that other people aren't telling. So if you want to see all that content and make up your own mind on the best leader of the Conservative Party of Canada moving forward, make sure you go to leadershipreports.ca. And always, I want to thank you for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. Rebel News is very often the only outlet on the ground covering leadership events. Now, certainly many media outlets are here for this debate, and we're going to be covering it just like them. But we are also covering the stories and asking the questions that no one else will. If you want to catch all that incredible coverage, you can do so at leadershipreports.ca.